you survived because you were so fit. The blood clot stopped my heart instantly, and I dropped dead right in front of my wife. Boom. Everything just faded to black, and I woke up 3 days later coming out of a medically induced coma. And I look over, and my wife is there, my mom's there, and I'm like, what happened? And she's like, you had a heart attack. It was crazy. My cardiologist that did the surgery, he put 2 stents in my LAD, basically said, you survived because you were so fit.
What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. I'm your host, as always, Ben Brown, owner and head coach here at Body Systems. Now, today's episode's a little bit different, and I think it's one that you are definitely going to feel viscerally. I'm sitting down with my buddy, Tommy Dolan, and Tommy and I go way back. We played college rugby together at University of Arizona, and really, even back then, Tommy was a guy who didn't take shortcuts. He was always working out, always training, always showing up, always getting after it on the pitch. And fast forward to today, and Tommy's a husband and father of 2, lives in the Denver area and's worked in fitness sales and medical sales and real estate. And now he's involved with a great company called Joy and Blokes in business development. And the real reason, though, that I brought Tommy onto the show was because Tommy's lived through things that would candidly break most people. A childhood accident that nearly cost him his leg, a melanoma diagnosis on his skull that was caught by sheer luck. And then a few years ago, he suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. His heart stopped right in front of his wife. And, the whole thing, CPR and defibrillator, medically induced coma, from which fortunately he woke up from 3 days later with a new reality and a completely different lens on life. And so this episode is about resilience. It's about leadership. It's about health, and it's about perspective. We talk about training over 40. We talk about the power of routines, nutrition strategies that keep him sharp. And one of the most important reminders that I've heard in quite a long time is what Tommy said he learned from his grandfather, which was to do everything you can, but you don't have to do everything. So if you've been carrying the weight of the world on your back, like many of us feel, and you've been trying to tough it out while ignoring perhaps the signs and the writing on the wall, or if you just need a wake-up call to help get your priorities right, like I did with this conversation, then this one's for you. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Here's my buddy, Tommy Dolan. Tommy Dolan, welcome to the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm excited for the opportunity to chat with you, to catch up. It's been quite some time since we last really communicated, at least kind of visually communicated.
Yeah.
For reference for you, for all of our listeners here, Tommy and I played college rugby, some context together, and then kind of each went on our own separate ways and have recently reconnected. And we share a lot of similarities in terms of how we approach life, our commitment to health and fitness and family. And Tommy's been through a lot over the years, which I'm certainly going to have him share with you. And that's why I think this conversation is going to be really, really valuable for you guys. So Tommy, just for context for our listeners, give us kind of let's start at present day. Like, where are you currently? Like, what do you do? Tell us about your family, your profession.
Yeah, man.
Day to
Yeah.
day.
No, thanks for having me. It's been too long. It's always good to reconnect with good people. I know we had our rugby days back at U of A, and like you said, kind of went here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, now living in the Denver area, suburb called Highlands Ranch. Been married for 17 years. My awesome wife Danielle. I have a 16-year-old son named Brave, who's into his rugby as well, and I've loved being able to watch his development. And then my daughter Harlow, she's 13 and she's into her cheer. I laugh with that sport. To me, it's like a 2-minute sprint with a smile on the whole time. Completely exhausting. But yeah, man, been doing a couple different things career wise up to today. Was in like the fitness industry doing sales, moved into medical sales, had some stem cell clinics that popped up before COVID, and then COVID wiped them out, unfortunately. So actually day traded for a year. That was up and down.
But that
I
was trial by fire.
Oh man, it was so much anxiety and didn't lose the house. Made a little money, but decided it was a little bit too much for me. So jumped into real estate, got my license in early 2022. My wife has had her license now for geez, almost 12 years. And so joined her and been working in that, and then recently started working with a recent guest of yours, with Joy and Blokes, with my brother-in-law Josh, my wife's brother. He started Blokes back in 2021, and I started helping him a few months ago with some business development stuff. And yeah, it's been good, man. It's been good. Just trying to stay busy.
You were someone who, as I recall, back to the college days, have always been fantastically fit. I mean, you were the dude on the team who was just in such great shape all of the time, kind of an animal on the field. And I'm sure you're still an animal in life in many capacities. Where did your commitment to health and fitness start?
My commitment to health and fitness starts with just my commitment to work ethic, which comes from my dad. My dad was an absolute animal when it came to working. He was a roofer in southern Arizona. I grew up in Tucson and would do some roofing in the summer with him, but just the way he lived his life and his focus and dedication at work when it's, 110 at street level and he's operating a hot tar mop or throwing down
Mhm.
shingles, on top of a roof at, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Tucson. Just that sort of mentality of hard work and ethic that was instilled in me early. And then high school, I went to Amphi High School in Tucson in the Vern Freely days. And in those days, Vern Freely was the winningest high school football coach in Arizona, and he was no BS. That guy was all about hard work and dedication and commitment to team, and doing your absolute best in life. And so those would have been two early on really really strong influences. And then yeah, once I moved into rugby, got to meet some other guys that were equally as committed. Coming to mind, like Tom Billups and Jack Clark, that
Sure.
coach at Cal. Worked with them a bit as an All American, and just kind of furthered that mindset of just get up, get after it, get the work done. And yeah, and it bleeds into every aspect of life. Showing up for your kids, showing up for your wife, but also still showing up at the gym. Yeah, just kind of that's been the the main work ethic focus on everything.
Yeah, I mean, has that just kind of been your ethos from from high school days? I mean, again, I do recall you always training hard in college. Obviously, you went on to play at a very high level rugby, and again, kind of being Mr. Fitness all of the time. And I know that's certainly something that's been an ethos. I think through your family. I mean, I
Yeah,
think your sister has always been in great shape, and obviously from your father.
yeah. John Dolan's head rattles, or words rattle around in my head constantly. Stay after it and keep fighting and keep after it. But yeah, it does. It bleeds over just into really staying focused on everything. And I am one of five siblings. We all have a similar work ethic and just sort of getting after it. I also always came from a kind of an underdog mentality, where growing up and going to Amphi, we were half the student body size, playing against teams from Phoenix, and we won a lot of those games. And it was because of Vern Freely's mentality that he instilled in us. And he would be telling us how everybody else thinks we're trash and garbage, and just getting us all fired up and playing those awesome coaching head games to get us motivated. And then yeah, and then also being undersized. I played linebacker in high school, and I was all of 5'9", 205 pounds or so, and just went on to play at NAU up in Flagstaff as well, and put on a little bit of weight. Then got up to 220, but still way undersized compared to my peers. And even when I moved over to rugby, I was playing flanker. As that position, it's similar kind of to like a linebacker or fullback. And the guys that were playing on the national team at the time, they're all legends, but geez, they were all 6'3", 6'4", and 220 plus or 230 pounds. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, just always feeling that kind of underdog chip on my shoulder. And yeah, that's kind of been a motivation of mine over the years as well.
Well, I'll say what perhaps you lacked in height, you made up for in quad girth.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
The man with the best quads
Oh,
in history, and I'm sure you're still rocking those.
oh, yeah.
So let's kind of fast forward. I mean, obviously, you talk to me about kind of your trajectory after your rugby career ended, starting a family, and then let's get into kind of some of the challenges that you've experienced along the way.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, so played football for about 10 years, growing up, and then into high school, did a little bit at NAU as well, and then moved over to rugby. I wasn't exactly happy playing football at NAU. It was just a different vibe compared to my high school football where I
Sure.
was with all my buddies and, we kind of had each other's back. It was a little bit more, coach, I didn't get the
Dog
ball
eat dog.
enough. Yeah, type
Yeah.
a little bit more of that, which wasn't my style. I was
Yeah.
really, focused on the team playing, and then yeah, jumped over to rugby and played that for roughly about 10 years as well. And once my wife was pregnant with our daughter, hey, that clock is ticking quickly. I ended up playing a summer season of sevens and was like, all right, that's going to be me. So I remember my last tournament was a national tournament in San Francisco in 2011. Yeah, 2011. I was like, all right, well, this is it. And so I got home and I took about a month off and I didn't do anything for the first time in 2 decades. Didn't run, didn't lift. And I tell you what, my hips just tightened up on me. It was painful to get out of bed. It was painful to, sit. Even I was like, all right, this isn't the answer. Doing nothing ain't the answer. So I was like, I'm going to run the Chicago Marathon. And as you
Of course
referenced,
you did.
I don't have a distance runner's body, very, very big quads that, don't lend themselves to distance running. But
Yeah, there's not a whole heck of a lot of type 1 muscle fibers rocking in those
yeah.
things.
But what I needed more than running a marathon was I needed to build a routine. I needed to create habits that would carry me, to today and beyond. And thought, hey, if I go online and I find a, 0 to marathon training plan that, can kind of do, get me in the habit of running, then great. And so the first year I did that, I only ran 3 days a week, but I would lift 2 other days and do some other stuff and just kind of just created the habit. And that was actually pretty good. I was able to mentally get a lot stronger. When you run 10 miles in training and you go, oh, that wasn't so bad. You kind of build a little bit more mental resilience in doing something like that. And then in the training cycles, you do that 20-mile run. And I was able to hold 8 minute pace for all of the 20 miles. Now that monkey that jumps on your back in the middle of the marathon is a real thing. And it happened to me where I was holding that pace in my first marathon and then just completely tanked. I still finished under 4 hours, which was my initial goal, but it instilled, how to carry on with life, with work, with being there for your family, but also making fitness and training a priority. And so, dead of Chicago winters, I was living in Chicago at the time. Dead of those winters, I would get up and run. I'd run in the snow, I'd run in this. And it just, like I said, that mental resilience to just keep going regardless of what's going on in life. You got a plan, you know what you're supposed to do the next day, you stick to it, and it creates the habits that you need for now. Or like, what do I need to train for other than like general health? Like it's just created a drive and a habit and a hunger in me to keep going day in, day out. So repeated that the next year, but
I'm
yeah,
curious.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think what you just touched on is actually super powerful in terms of just the dedication and the commitment to instill these behaviors and these routines and these habits despite the discomfort that is, we're presented with,
Mhm,
right? Because listen, I mean, Chicago, dead of winter, blistering cold. I grew up in Minnesota.
mhm.
Last thing you want to do at 10 below is go out for a run, let alone a walk. And I've
Yeah.
got clients, in the Midwest, and they're like, yeah, it's cold and I don't want to get out of bed and it's dark, still at 5:30, 6 a.m. like, I get that, but you have goals,
Yeah.
you have commitments. And I think that, this is a very, very relevant sort of topic, pain point for a lot of people around just embracing the suck. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's almost, candidly, it's almost embarrassing that we have to, prompt people. And we all listen, we all deal with this. It's 110 degrees outside. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to go outside for a walk because I'm sweating my
Yeah.
ass off. But it's like, how challenging is that really relative to some of the things that people do? So I guess my question is kind of, what would you say to people that are kind of navigating, instilling these behaviors? And then similarly, is how do you help your kids kind of tackle these same
Mm.
types of things and situations?
Yeah, so I think big thing for me is scheduling it. I still have on my calendar the workout that I'm going to do for the day. Everything is scheduled and I pay attention to that and I commit to it. It's on my schedule. I'm going to do it, right? There's always a reason not. There's always a ton of reasons not to do stuff. And so, just creating the habits that allow us to push through that, right? Not even some people get, I guess, focused on the end goal, focus on the step. What's the next step?
Mm,
What's tomorrow? I did today. I got my workout in already this morning. I'm good. What's tomorrow? What's tomorrow? What do I need to do the next day? What do I need to do the next week? And I don't have this perfect grand master plan anymore of like, well, I got to get ready for the season or I got to get ready for this competition. I'm just trying to get ready for life, stay ready for life. So it's more just the habit of scheduling it and making sure you focus on the next step versus like, I want to lose 15 pounds. Well, okay, how do you do that? That's the end goal, but what's tomorrow? What's
totally.
tomorrow? Yeah. And then with my kids, the whole adage of more is caught than taught. I don't harp on them like, hey, what's your goal? You need to execute, write your steps down. And I just, I talk to them about, they see how I live and they see how I'm going to the gym. And then with my son Brave, we're doing a lot of rugby specific training. So he and I are talking about like, hey, what's next? What I need to move to? Do I need to practice, passing skills or kicking skills or things like that? So, we have those kind of just normal conversations. It's not like, hey, we're going to sit down and whiteboard out, how you get from here to there.
Yeah.
Have an overarching plan, but what's the next step? What's the next step? And then what's the step after that? You just continue that and it builds momentum, it builds momentum towards your goal.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I appreciate sort of the adage, what more is caught than taught. And I think it's just such a profound reminder to all of us who have kids, who are having kids, who want to lead by example and who need to lead by example, that it's like, listen, man, you can tell them whatever you want, whatever you think they need to hear, but they're going to do what you do.
Yeah.
And I literally I just got back from a hike with a group of guys. We do like a monthly ruck, strap some weight on your back and we go hiking in Phoenix Mountain Preserve over here. And one of the guys was kind of chirping about his kid and their eating habits. And she's a competitive volleyball player. And I was like, listen, dude, I'll be honest with you. And I'm going to challenge you a bit here, but it's like, how are you showing up at home? How are you setting the precedent for what you want her to do and what you expect her to do? Listen, I know you, good dude. We've had meals together. I know how you behave.
Yeah.
And if you want her to change, you change,
Exactly
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
So walking forward,
Mm.
again, like you've had some massive challenges. When did these things start?
Oh man, they go back to the 80s. Yeah. Nah, being the youngest of five, little brother was named Thomas, but never was ever going to be called Thomas by anybody in my family. Always Tommy. It goes back to June of 1988. I was at my aunt's house, and she had one of those old Adobe slump block houses in kind of the center of Tucson. They finished a carport into like a common area play. They had some toys in there and things. The door, there was a sliding glass door between the kitchen and that new addition, but that sliding glass door wasn't plated glass. So bring you to June of 1988. I'm 9 years old. I'm an okay kid. I don't always listen on the first go round, and so I was in that playroom. My mom was in the kitchen, and she's like, "Hey, we need to leave." So I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'm gonna keep playing." In between her saying that and me deciding it was time to go, somebody closed the door. So I'm done playing. Crap, I'm gonna get in trouble. I bolt off and I run straight through that sliding glass door and not being plated. So if you smash like a car windshield now, you see it's spiders.
Yeah.
It's coated in a like a plastic film basically to keep it from turning into 1,000 wine glasses. This wasn't. So I ran right through it. I ran through with my arm first, got 25 stitches here, and then my leg kicked through and cut me all the way down to my tibia.
Holy
Completely
moly.
shredded my tibia. Had I ran through with any part of my neck, that would have been like jugular action, bleed out. Like it would have been a complete mess. It was so bad that after I got through the sliding glass door, I was in total shock. And my cousin runs up and she's like, "Put your arm around me. Put your arm around me. Let me hold you up." I look down, see the pool of blood. I see my tibia. I actually see the bone in my leg. And I look at her and I go, "I don't want to get blood on your shirt." Just calm as day. Calm as day. Shock does weird things to people. And
Yeah.
so, my mom runs around the corner and I'll never forget the look on her face. It was like that scream emoji, like just like completely shocked. He turned white and he called for an ambulance. I remember so many details in a very just kind of calm, everyday manner. But it was like the ambulances are delayed. My cousins are like, he's freaking out. He's going to bleed out and all the rest. And so they wrapped my leg in a bunch of beach towels and threw me in the back of my cousin's truck. And we drove from there to some medical center. And when we got there, they were telling my parents, like, "Hey, this is gonna have to amputate this, and below the knee."
Holy jeez.
Yeah. And my dad begged him, like, "Please do whatever you can. We don't want him to, go through life with that." And so there was a hand surgeon that happened to be on call who had experience, reconnecting tendons and kind of that kind of stuff. He's like, "I'll do my best. No, there's no guarantees. We'll do what we can." And so legend has it that they were counting stitches. I don't know if people actually do that, but they stopped at like 600 stitches and they're like just past halfway done. So they had to stitch my leg and I have this big V-shaped scar on the outside of my calf. I don't have a tibialis anterior in my
Muscle?
yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
the muscle. You can like pinch around my tibia and I can't dorsal flex about a
Oh,
half.
that's wild, man.
Yeah, I can only dorsal flex about half as much as my left foot. And so, yeah, like I said though, that's the first time I should have died. If I, go put my neck through that, it's lights out. I'm gonna bleed to death. But the doctor, they stitched it all back together, and 3 months later, I was back on my skateboard, happy as a clam. And so
It's
that would have
crazy,
been
dude.
June. Yeah, it was crazy. So, fast forward September, I'm in school, October, November, December of that same year. 1988 was a banner year for me. I
Apparently.
was I was standing on a 6 foot half pipe, and I don't know if people know the terminology, but if you lead with your left foot but you kind of go backwards, it's called going fakie, or it used to be called that. Now I think it's called swing.
I used to
Yeah,
skate.
okay,
I'm with
okay.
you.
So there was a guy on the half pipe, and he went up fakie, and he hit the top edge of the coping and shot his board all the way to the other side, hit me dead in the face, and knocked me back off that ramp 6 feet, and I landed directly on my head. I should have broken my neck and died that day too. I,
Right?
I I remember looking up at my feet that were resting against the back of the half pipe because I fell like
Mm.
straight back,
Yeah.
and I was just looking up at my feet like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And of course, in those days, no cell phone. You couldn't call anyone. I had to jump at least two fences bleeding out of my face to get to my friend's house to call my parents to tell them what happened. And of course,
Yeah.
they probably wanted to wrap me in bubble wrap at that point. But yeah, yeah, that was time number two. I almost died. Number three was quite a few years later. after high school. So you spend enough time in Tucson, there's some fun areas. And
That's an
yeah, some
understatement.
sketchy areas.
I actually, to be fair, no offense, I don't think you need to spend very much time at all
Yeah.
to realize there's some fun
there's
areas in
there's
Tucson.
some sketchy areas, and I partially grew up in one of them, but yeah, had some friends that were, part of gangs and, kind of more exposed to that life, but we played football together. So we were football friends first and foremost, and we still are to this day. But one of them wanted to go meet a girl at a party on the wrong side of town. So we went to this party, and there was some words spoken between everybody, and we're like, all right, we're just gonna leave because there's four of us and 400 of them. So as we're leaving, we end up getting shot at, and there was like bullets lodged in the door and different stuff. And just by the grace of God that we didn't get shot that day. So maybe not as dramatic, but we're just like, holy crap, we're getting shot at. So we just took off. That was sketchy. Yeah, like I said, that from 1988. That was, I want to say, maybe 2004 or something. So had a bit of a reprieve there.
All right. Some pretty traumatic. I think numbers 4 and 5, if you will, are pretty traumatic, and I'd love to jump in and share kind of how that was precipitated.
Yeah, number four was definitely more life altering. Ended up getting diagnosed with melanoma on the back of my head just here. And very, I think the word is serendipitous as to how it all came about. I don't pay for expensive haircuts. We'll put it that way. went
Sure.
to the cost cutters down the road, and ended up getting a haircut that wasn't even up to par with what I paid for it. So come home, and I'm in the mirror, like the medicine cabinet mirror and the other mirror, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
fix, clipping and trimming and all the rest. And I noticed a spot on the back of my head. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good. And my grandfather actually died from melanoma. So I was like, ooh, I better go to the dermatologist. My wife agreed. I had an appointment. It was a few months in the future, into the future, and so she's like, "Why don't you bump that up?" Got that biopsied, and a couple weeks later, got the call that it was in fact stage 1B melanoma. Could be stage 3, depending upon any spread to lymph nodes. So a few weeks later, I had what's called wide local excision. They took 3 centimeters of margin out of the back of my head, and I still have a massive scar there. But they also took lymph nodes here and here, and again, by the grace of God, there was nothing had spread. Getting a bad haircut, so to speak, saved my life. And so,
Hmm.
don't pay for expensive haircut. No, that's not the lesson. No, I was kidding.
Did you have to do like chemo or any of that
I
stuff?
got I got so fortunate that I caught it all before it spread. And obviously, skin cancer on your head, their immediate concern is that it's going to be in your brain, and
Yeah.
go to brain cancer. And nothing, no spread, nothing at all. It was so, yeah. It's like I said, it was very much a good thing that I ended up getting that cheaper haircut to to see that and save my life. I found some pictures where I had shaved my head a few years before, and I didn't see the melanoma on my head, so it grew pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And again, grew up in Arizona, didn't wear a lot of
Right.
sunscreen or hats or anything like that. Didn't know a lot about it, but I would, anybody listening, I would say, hey, no matter where you grew up or what you do, go get your skin checked. I mean, even people of African descent or others, they need to check. Bob Marley died from melanoma,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So be smart about that. But yeah, hopefully the the last time I almost died, and hopefully this will be the last time I almost
The last near
the
death
last near death experience.
until a very long time from
Yeah,
now.
no, no. Just over 3 years ago, I had what's called a plaque rupture in my left anterior descending artery in my heart. The plaque ruptured and popped like a blister. And when that happened, it caused a blood clot to form. And so I had about a 5 to 7% blockage in my LAD, which is not significant, right?
No.
Plenty of area for blood to flow through. But the blood clot stopped my heart instantly, and I dropped dead right in front of my wife. I was sitting at my laptop that I am right now. We were on the phone with some real estate clients going over a contract, and I looked back at her, looked over this shoulder, looked back forward, and it was like, like in the Looney Tunes cartoons where it just fades to
Yeah,
black. Boom,
that
everything
was
just
it.
faded to black, and I woke up 3 days later, coming out of a medically induced coma. And classic like movie scene, right? You wake up and you look around and it's beep and it's this and it's that and there's wires everywhere. And of course I started like trying to pull wires out, and nurse comes in. I think she just hit me with the happy button and put me back to sleep. And
Yeah.
because I was in ICU and it was the middle of the night, family couldn't be there. So I couldn't immediately, have my wife be like, "Hey, what happened?" So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, felt, kind of went back to sleep, woke up a few hours later. It's daytime now, and I look over, and my wife is there, my mom's there, and I'm like, what happened? And she's like, you had a heart attack. And I'm like, how? I didn't have a clogged artery. Like, what happened? And she's like, you had what's called a plaque rupture. And I'm like, oh gosh, what's that? So, explained it to me. And I just remember being like completely overwhelmed by like, whoa, I didn't expect this to happen. And sadly, back in 2012, my dad actually ended up passing away from a heart attack and a widowmaker as well, and
Yeah.
LAD. And so I had over those years, over the decade since from my dad's passing to then, I had been very very health conscious. After having cancer, I got connected with an integrative wellness provider here in Denver named Paul Battle. Changed my diet, worked with a nutritionist named Kimsey and changed the diet, stopped eating gluten and dairy, you know, focused on, did food sensitivity tests to tell my body what, like tell me what my body liked and didn't like. And still that happened. And, it was such a shock to have had that happen, because I was like, man, here I am training and everything.
Yeah. Probably one of the more fit dudes that, I mean, honestly, probably one of the more fit people, like probably most of the people that you know
Yeah,
and I know.
yeah, yeah. So it was crazy, but my cardiologist that did the surgery, he put two stents in my LAD. Basically said, you survived because you were so fit." And maybe a few months after all this happened, I recovered. We went down to the fire station where the station 18 here that came, and the guys that helped me, and they told us what happened, like, so my wife Danielle, she literally said like God told her to do CPR because she didn't know what was going on. My jaw locked, so she thought I was having a seizure. And I was doing agonal breathing, so she wasn't sure, what was going on. So she started doing CPR right away. Grabbed my son, who was only 13 at the time, had him call 911 and go get the neighbors. And then I'm looking at their house out the window right now. My two neighbors, John and Tiffany, came over, and my wife and my neighbors each did 2 minutes of CPR on me. Paramedics came. They did 14 minutes more. They did 3 or 4 shocks with a defibrillator, epinephrine to kind of clear the blockage. And what they said is once my heart like got going again, I was fighting them like hell. Like I was completely unconscious. I don't remember any of it. But they're like, that's one of the best signs, because it's like life is back and you're
Yeah.
trying to survive, you're going after it. And so it was quite an emotional experience to go to the firehouse and meet those guys, and get to have them tell me the story. And they were like, hey kids, do you remember what you said to us as we came in the house? And my kids are like, no. And they're like, please save our dad. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm
Oh
crying. Like
man, dude.
we're all crying at the fire station. And
Oh,
it was powerful, to get to meet those guys that saved your life. And just ironically or not, I saw 3 of them last night. I was bell ringing for the Salvation Army, for the red kettles, and they pulled up, and I was like, hey guys, how you been? And they're like, man, it's so good to see you standing and still after
that's
it and
amazing.
all the rest. But yeah, 3 years. Yeah, like we said, hopefully that's the last time I have to go through anything like that. But I do still have. I did, from the lack of oxygen during the 6 minutes. I ended up with a traumatic
Yeah.
brain injury, so have to
Yeah.
deal with that. Have to have some symptoms that come from that every once in a while. But
If you don't mind sharing, what have been the repercussions
yeah,
of the
Sure.
TBI.
So one of the initial things that was kind of weird is my eyes. I was already, I'm 46 now. I was
Yeah.
in early 40s. I was starting to get early morning, couldn't focus, my vision so great. That ramped up. And it wasn't until recently it's actually gotten better, which is kind of cool. But my vision would yo-yo. So I would be able to like nearsighted, farsighted, and I would get like
Mhm.
almost like seasick. So that
Yeah.
was that was one of the kind of most, I guess, intense, or one of the things like, that I was most aware of. But it wasn't until recently that my wife and I figured out, as a realtor, right? I was in the middle of a real estate transaction. And anytime I was doing that, I was actually experiencing a lot of like PTSD. And so I was
Oh,
struggling to figure out how to process real estate contracts. And I'm like, what's
yeah.
wrong with me? Like, I mean, I'm not the smartest guy out here, but I got a finance degree. I can do stuff. I should be able to do
Right.
this. But it was so early on in my real estate career that I was only a few months in. I didn't have a lot of experience with the contracts.
Yeah.
And so, luckily, like I said, my wife's a realtor. So what we do now is if a friend calls me up, hey, I want to buy a house, I go show them. Once it comes time for contracts, my wife takes over. I go to inspection, she finishes all the objections,
Right.
and then I go back and I do the closing. And so, we have a really good way to kind of balance everything, and it's worked for us. But removing the obligation to handle all the contractual stuff was just a massive weight off my shoulders. I told it, like, I've had more peace in the last 2 months than I have in the last 3 years. Because as a guy, right, you got to get over it. You got to work through it. You got to
Mm,
work harder. You got to da 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 da. And I couldn't. I couldn't. And I think that that's an important lesson to some people too. Is sometimes you do have to pivot, right? Like working hard, yeah, put the work in, bust your butt, do it all. But in certain situations, nah, you need to find another way. And so instead of beating myself up about it and all the rest, I found another way and we make it work. And
yeah.
it feels so much better. It's good. It's amazing.
Man, just a lot of things, but one, I'm just really grateful that you shared that with us, and I appreciate you sharing that. It brought both tears and chills to me, and just the fact that you're still here and able to contribute and in the way that only you can, and for your family and community, and for us, that's super
Yeah.
powerful. And so I appreciate that. It sounds to me like it's brought a certain level of humility to your life, a certain level of just letting
Yeah.
go. And I think, like you were just sharing, and candidly, that's also something that I've been experiencing, especially with the clients. So personally, but also with the clients that we work with, is because I'm 46 as well. And I think we're in this juncture of life. And I think especially kind of being an athlete, being just a hard charging, fitness minded, health minded individual. There's a lot of guys that I work with that I'm confident that and work with that are hard
Mm.
charging in business and just in life in general. And I think there becomes a point where you do have to kind of relegate yourself to like, what can I actually control and what is outside of my
Yeah.
control?
No, 100%.
And right. And it's, I think the power comes in being able to acknowledge
Mhm.
that and not putting the undue stress on worrying about the shit that you can't
Sure.
control. Because it's just like at this stage of life, it's like, how worth it is it?
Yeah.
Like, we've got a family, we've got responsibilities, the amount of stress that we're dealing with, to say nothing of worrying about all the things that we can't, are tremendous, are tremendous. How have you approached just that very mindset of just absolving yourself of like what is outside of your control?
Yeah. No, I mean, I had the realization that didn't, as much as I loved playing rugby, physically running into other people was probably not a great idea anymore. Had a labrum repair here, had a pec repair here, it was like, I had some concussions and all the rest. And was like, yeah, this is a young man's game. And,
Yeah.
but just modified. So I still love rugby. So what do? I play touch rugby with old boys occasionally, right? And still
Yeah.
have fun doing that. I've also increased actually reffing rugby, high school rugby games. It's nice to be in the middle of the action without getting smashed into, so I think it's just about modifying, right? And listen to your body. What is your body saying? Like, man, every time I do this lift or this whatever, I can't walk for 2 days. Okay, yeah, instead of just
Mhm.
pushing through, I think you had the similar experience with the deadlifting a couple months back, where it's like,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right, that may be it. Or maybe I'll just deadlift the bar. I can still do the movement and the motion, but really being smart about listening to your body and what you can do. And instead of like, hey, we're athletes, we're working out, we're training, we get to the peak and then we just give it all up, right? Make that decline as slow and as and as flat as possible, right? So if I could squat 400 pounds last year, maybe it's 315 this year, maybe it's 225 next year, whatever the case may be. So just listening to our bodies, not throwing everything out, but just modifying and finding a way. And one thing that actually comes to mind that you might be interested in, I made a new friend a couple years back, and he does this Goda movement. And
Mm.
yeah, this guy several years ago was having a lot of, not my friend, he's a coach for them, but the guy who kind of invented it, he studied the way like indigenous cultures move, babies, superstar athletes that played like a decade or more, like Ed Reed and Randy Moss, and then like your
Yeah.
70 and 80-year-old track athletes, right? Those sprinters.
Mm.
He studied their movement patterns and they all move in a similar way. And so he created a training scheme around it. And I've been doing that for the past, let's see, 2 months. I'm back to sprinting. My low back has not felt this good in 10 years. And so I think, maybe some of us old athletes, we might say, like, oh, I got to power clean and squat and this and that because that's
Oh,
what I
yeah.
did. That's what I
So
grew up doing. Well, maybe there's a new way. Maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's ways that you can tweak and twist and find different options. And so, yeah, part of it too, I think, is just listen to your body, find new ways to adapt, and keep moving, keep after it.
what about I think you're dead on, and I talk about this all the time around just that that's the beautiful thing about strength training is like, listen, man, you can be healthy and lean and jacked and strong, and you don't have to squat or deadlift or
No.
bench press.
Yeah.
Like, right. So for all you guys that are still doing the high school workouts, like let's turn the page. Let's accept it's okay to use machines. It's
Yeah.
okay if it's not quote unquote functional training. Like it doesn't matter as long as we're creating some progressive overload and applying some resistance and stimulus to cause adaptation, like you're going to be good. And there's just a myriad of ways to do that, which is beautiful. It's beautiful about the human body. But what about from a mindset, an ego, a lifestyle, a dad, husband, father standpoint of like, right, this overt burden of kind of feeling like you have to do a certain amount of things or do all of the things. And how has that perspective changed candidly just since you had to become
Yeah.
vulnerable based on, your heart
Yeah,
attack?
that's big. And I know for me it's important. Everybody kind of approaches it their own way, but my faith has been a big part of it. Growing up Christian, and kind of, we're heavily involved in our church and our church community, I should say, and always having a focus and a connection back to that was and is a major help that I had in getting through the last 3 years, especially early on, them bringing meals and prayers and guidance and help and whatever we need, kind of having the rug pulled out from underneath you, being in a medically induced coma and not being able to do anything. You do realize that life goes on without you. So I know that some very, very high powered people who have very important jobs that employ a lot of people, and what they do is important and meaningful, but it will go on without you, right? Like life goes on. And so I kind of realized, like, I don't have to do everything. I've built a community around me. My wife and I have done that allows us to be supported. I have the family. And so, a lot of that, kind of Marlboro Man mentality, right? Like I got,
Yeah,
I,
very much.
I'm Clint Eastwood, dirty hair, I whatever, like Western type mentality. Like I got to do everything. It's a farce, man. And I just posted actually today. Like even to me, networking is kind of dead to me, right? Networking is like, Ben, what can I get from you? I'm going to tell you about me.
Hmm.
Building community, right? Like what can I give to you and you give to me, and we grow and we build together. It's so much more fulfilling and feels so much better. But it's to me, the more I realize that, and I had to realize it, I didn't have a choice, right? Like I didn't have this choice of like, well, I need to get out of bed and go unclog the toilet, you know what I mean? Or whatever, go put up the Christmas light. I couldn't put up the Christmas lights that year, right? Not that I really like doing that anyway. But the point being, I
Touche.
couldn't do it, right? I couldn't do these things. I had to let everybody else do it. And I realized it still got done. Life still carried on. My wife went and had one of her best years in real estate, two best years ever after my heart attack. She just busted her butt. She carried us. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think for the guy out there that thinks like, man, I gotta bootstrap and go after it and it's all on me, that's only in your head. And I think it's a false sense of pride, right? Like it's almost like if I don't do this, I'm not as big of a man. But it takes a
Yes.
ton to say like, I can't, yeah, I can't do that. I need help with this. And just, humility is real strength, right? Like a lot of people misunderstand the word meekness. They think it's like shyness or weak or whatever. But what my dad used to say is like meekness is strength under control. So
Mm.
being humble and being meek are not always valued in our society, but I think they're the better way to get through life. And just, like I said, building community, having people around you so that when something bad happens to you, not if, right, but when, like you have the pieces in place that can help you make it through that time. Hopefully that answered the question. It's a little bit of a, yeah,
No,
it's a
it
tough one.
does. I mean, it's so profound, it's so valuable, it's so deep, but it's so pertinent, to what we're sharing here. And I just think it's so easy to get lost down the rabbit hole of what we think is expected
Hmm.
of us. And people listen to this podcast and they're like, this is what I should be doing. And hopefully I don't, I'm never preachy. I'm never dogmatic. That's what I pride myself on. And I'm trying to share tools and strategies and tactics, but more so I'm also trying to challenge mindset and beliefs. And I think, there's this pervasive belief that we're never good
Hmm.
enough. We can always be better. And we see people and we tell ourselves stories around how someone else is doing the things that we want or should be
Or it looks that way
doing.
on
And it's
Instagram.
very
Yeah.
100%. And it's such
Yeah.
bullshit, right? It's such bullshit because we get lost in this narrative of thinking that we're never good
Hmm.
enough, right? Relative to what someone else is doing. And it's a
Yeah.
facade, right? And so I think that's why I'm just, so happy to be having this conversation, right? To consider, right? If you're listening to this and it's forcing me to consider is like, listen, things can change in
A
literally a
heartbeat.
heartbeat. And, what do you want your life to look like? And what do you want your experience to sustain of? And, I just read this good book by Morgan Housel. He wrote, I don't know if you read it. He wrote a book called The Psychology of Money. It's a great book, by the way. I would strongly encourage it for anyone who is or wants to be finance minded. Like we
Yeah.
candidly, are always trying to do better with our
Sure.
finances. So that was his first book. He just came out with his second book called The Art of Spending
Hmm.
Money. And I'll say it honestly was nowhere near as good as the first book, but sort of the through line of it is really just considering like, why is it that you're right? What is it that you're working so
Mm.
hard for in the first place?
Yeah.
Right? Is it, you're working to buy this new car, like, right? This shiny object, or you want to buy a bigger house, or you want to do these extravagant things or buy this watch, but like,
Hmm.
why? Like, is it a status symbol? Is it something that you're trying to band-aid from an emotional trauma of growing up? Like you grew up without
Right.
money and now you're now you can make enough money that can be like F you to kind of the emotions that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're like, I could never afford this. That's totally understandable. You buy a bigger house. It's like, well,
Mhm.
why do it's because I want to fill it with people and
Yeah.
experiences, people that I love. And so all of it just brings me back to kind of like, well, what is your hard work creating
Nah, that's
for you?
good.
Is it creating the lifestyle? And like ultimately, like what's the lifestyle that you want to
Mhm,
live? And make sure that you're actually working for
mhm.
that, not just to, work to make more money, to keep kind of
Yeah,
pushing the goalposts further
yeah,
and further out to the point where then you get to the point where you drop
yeah.
dead or you're like, now I'm quote unquote retired and I
I
missed
can't do
all
anything.
of the opportunities, right, to do the things that I wanted to
Yeah.
do. And so I just think it genuinely speaks to like the idea of like, hey, I have my family, I have my community, I have a job that I deeply enjoy, or at least provides the means for me doing
Mhm.
things that I deeply enjoy, that I feel supported, that I have the comfort of knowing that I don't have to carry, you know, everything on my
Yeah.
back. And I think that also, and then that, therein is like, how are we building out our days in a way that, helps us do
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, just the structure of my day is always like, I wake up and I do my reading and praying early because if I don't do it, then it just gets washed away.
Yeah.
And then I get the kids up and then I go to the gym because if I don't do it, then I'm never gonna like it. The day's too busy. And then I add in the work. I put the first things first, right? Like it's important to do that in a structured way, but yeah, like you said, man, you kind of got to let life be life too. Like what am I working towards? I don't always know. I don't have a perfect answer, but I have responsibilities and things like that, and things I want to do. But keeping the first things first, making sure I'm present for my wife and my kids is always important to me. And my son's gonna go off to do high school in New Zealand, and I have to be very intentional how we spend this next month and and
Yeah.
and, and all the rest. And but there's something I told him with sports. He and I've coached him a lot, and I think it might help resonate with some other people that you work with. Is for me what happened. I couldn't control anything. Like literally, I was. Some would say dead. Some would say dying. Like on the ground, no ability to do anything to save myself. And so it kind of just wakes you up to the fact that yeah, stuff in life is going to get out of your control, and that's okay. And so my the thing that I had said, I was talking with my son
Yes.
after different practices or games or whatever, and I just said, hey, do everything you can, but you don't have to do everything. So how does that translate to being an adult? Well, if you're a CEO, do your part and let the people you've hired to do the other parts, let them do what they need to do. Yeah, if they ask you a question, if they want your guidance or your experience, go for it. But the heavy handedness of somebody who's trying to do everybody's job. No, nobody likes that person. You know what I mean? Like, hey, just let you hired me, let me do my job. But and then as a parent too, it's hard to keep up with this kid's got this sports schedule or school activity and all the rest, and just working with your family and working with your community, building community, as I was referencing, is so important too. And what can you give to your community, and then what do you get back? It's a mutual thing versus, like I said, with like networking is like, hey, I want to get to know this guy so I can get a better job out of him,
Right.
or whatever the case.
That's right.
So yeah, just being real and treating people, the golden rule, right? Treat people how you want to be treated, and all those things. But yeah, I really think like do what you can do it the best you can do it, put all your effort into it, and do that. But if it's not your lane, stay out of it. Easy as that.
How do you think about taking care of yourself, right? To show up as your best every single day, to be able to contribute in the ways that you're discussing, that you want to be able to contribute. When you say doing everything you can, I think so much of that lends itself to like also doing everything that you can to be your best,
Yeah.
to show up at your best genuinely. And so, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, and so like, just my schedule, staying strict to my schedule. That's how my mind works. I want to have things laid out, and I put the first things first. With like I said, the reading my Bible, praying. My spiritual focus first, and my physical. Get into the gym and get that going, and then that allows me to not have any distractions for work, right? Oh
Mm,
man, I forgot to do my workout. I need to save some energy.
mm,
No, it's done. All the important things are done. And I know that that's not possible for everybody. Like, the paramedics and firefighters who saved my life, they probably have a hard time scheduling their life, when they get a call, right? They could be in the middle of doing something. But I think everybody has a little bit of capacity to say, like, what are the most important things to me? Is it a spiritual connection? Is it physical? Is it working out? I need to do those first. Then that gives you the ability to show up and be fully focused and not be distracted on, oh, I didn't do this, or sometimes even like the people, carrying like guilt and shame and all their, oh, I need to get back in the gym. I need to lose 5 pounds, and do the first things first on a repeated basis, worry about the next step. And that's worked really, really well for me over the last, 20 plus years.
what are a couple strategies that you've had to employ, turn to, utilize, take advantage of around nutrition, supplementation, hormone optimization that have
Yeah.
helped you show up the way that you want to show up?
Yeah. So after the cancer, started working with the integrative wellness provider, and he ran a number of different tests. And some people might be worried about the costs of that. I tell you what, the benefits far
Mm,
outweigh the cost. Getting in with a good integrative wellness group and nutrition and all the rest have been, paid off in dividends for me. And most recently, I started working with that group, Joy and Blokes,
mm.
that my brother-in-law started. I'm working for them, but I've been a patient with them now for a number of years, and they got a great group. There's tons and tons of providers that they're using that are employees with them that just have a wealth of knowledge. They have like clinician and a medical kind of research and team that's constantly feeding all their frontline providers more information and giving them more tools. And so, it's they're all doing a really good job of learning new things, spreading it out to the frontline
Yeah.
providers, getting it out to everyday people like you and me to employ. And so back in 2017, I did start with the testosterone replacement, and that was good. That was, I felt more energy and, more muscle, all the things that come with that. But I also started. I mean, I'm like, with some of the heart attack stuff, like a medicine cabinet, walking
No
medicine
doubt.
cabinet. But you know thyroid medication, my thyroid, I guess I inherited a thyroid that's pretty inactive,
Yeah.
so I am on two different thyroid medications. Those certainly help. Also on low dose naltrexone, which is used, for like systemic inflammation, and a lot of different benefits that has. Geez, what else? And then yeah, the heart medications I have to take as well. I'm on two, a platelet thinner and aspirin, and I cut myself shaving last night, and it looked like a bloody nightmare. It's kind of funny. That's a bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. And then yeah, a lot of the multivitamins and fish oils and kind of the more quote unquote standard things. But every few years I do a food sensitivity test, and I get, key data about, sensitivities come and go, right? It's not like an allergy, so it can come and go. And those tests have been just completely eye opening. The first ones I took showed that gluten and dairy were not
Yeah.
great for me, so got off that. For me, red meat is a flag. So I don't
Oh,
cut it out. I
sorry,
know
bro.
I don't cut it out, but I moderate, right? I don't eat it. It's not every night, but I
Yeah.
rotate proteins. I'll eat beef, chicken, fish, pork. I'll just kind of rotate them all. I eat way more saturated fat than my cardiologist would probably have a heart attack knowing how much saturated fat I eat. But I do avoid like polyunsaturated fatty, the PUFAs, and
Yeah.
I avoid that kind of stuff. And but routine wise, fasting has been massive. I Most every day I fast at least 16 hours.
Yeah.
I eat dinner at like 4:30, and it stinks because I don't get to eat dinner with my family very much. I just kind of sit around if we eat dinner together. But for me, I found that if I eat after 6, I always want a second helping and I always want dessert and I always crave more. I can't get full. But if I eat
Mm.
at 4, 4:30, I'm done. I don't need anything the rest of the night. I just have some water and I'm perfectly fine. And the amount of extra calories that I don't need that I've cut out because of that have been phenomenal. And then I work out fully fasted as well. So
So you work out early in the morning, fully
yeah,
fasted, don't
abs
eat anything for a few
no,
hours
no, I'll have a
after.
cup of coffee just, as with my morning routine, and yeah, that's it, and I've gotten used to that. I've gotten so used to that it's hard, like, if I eat, I need to wait, like, 2 hours before I even think about exercising, or I'll be belly aching about it, but,
Yeah.
yeah, so working out fully fasted, I do take some essential amino acids before
Okay.
the
That was
workout.
my
Yeah,
next question.
just so I don't cannibalize muscle,
Yep.
and then straight away is a protein shake, just because it's going to absorb quick and everything to get things going again, and then
Oh, so you will do a protein shake post training,
post training, yeah, yeah, right
but
after.
then no, then your next meal won't be till what?
No, no, so
You
i'll
know.
eat i'll eat from about
Oh, I
8:30,
got
yeah,
you.
till about 4:30, and then I
Oh, so
fast
you'll train and
through
then
the
you'll
whole
eat.
night,
That's
yeah,
not so you are fasted, but you'll do EAAs
yeah,
and then you'll eat.
then yeah, then I
Okay,
so
I'm
yeah,
with you. All right. I
yeah.
was concerned for you for a second
No,
there.
no.
Like,
Yeah, I was trying to like eat dinner, work out in the morning, do it, but add a 16-hour fast. So I was like eating at like 11, and I was like, I can't do this. This isn't
yeah,
working.
that's
So, mealtime is important. I know it's a big tradition for a lot of people, but for me, I knew it was the right step to take to say, like, okay, I'm going to not eat dinner at dinner time with people. I'm going to eat just, a late in the late afternoon, and that's really been a change for me. And then one thing that when it comes to diet, exercise, scheduling, that my nutritionist had said is like, I was early on working with her. I was like, hey, I had this work trip. It's sort of like a reward trip to Napa, and I was like, what do I do? And she's like, go and enjoy yourself.
mm,
I was like, really? I thought she was going to be like, you need to buckle down and da 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 da, and and she's
yeah,
like, go and enjoy yourself and come back and double down on the commitment and make sure that
yeah.
when you're home and in your, when you're in your routine and your schedule, that you're on. And then I did and went, and a couple of times I enjoyed myself, and a couple of the days I was like, I don't feel the need to. I don't feel like I need to go and have excess food or wine or drink or whatever, because I had the permission to
Totally.
do so. I didn't feel
Yeah.
like, ooh, I'm going to be, bad and sneak around and all this. But yeah, those are just some of the routines that I follow. Definitely the fasting, working out, fully fasted. That's been big help to me. Like I said, I've been doing that go to training a lot throughout the day to just better my movement. But I still do a lot of pull ups and burpees and stuff like that. Keep the heart rate up as when I work out. I never stop when I exercise. It's like I'll do some running, lifting, running, lifting, running, lifting. And it comes from Aaron Mannheimer, right? Like
Yeah,
that was
sure.
kind of how he trained us back when I was playing with them in Chicago. And just staying, fully active during those sessions, and not spending any time at the gym that's wasted, not
Yeah.
at all. But yeah, man, that's yeah.
Dude, amazing. So appreciative of you taking the time to share your journey and story with us. And I gleaned a lot out of it, and I'm confident that our listeners did as well. Before we jump into like where people can connect with you and find out more about you, is there anything else that you would, want to share with our listeners?
Well, thank you. And it's an honor for me to share, kind of my life journey. And I've had people I've kind of told a little bit to, like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, I don't have the patience. Like, so to be able to just kind of share my story, and, just kind of express my gratitude for one, still being alive. That's huge. But just, friendships like yours that have been able to last the time, like the it could be 10 years, and I could see you in 10 more years, and we'd hit it off just the way we
Yeah.
always do. It's always good to connect with good people. And so I appreciate you taking the time to do this as well. And parting advice, man, yeah, I'm no guru or anything, but just, yeah, do what you can, but you don't have to do everything. I think would be a major take home for people. If you're 50s and you're just starting out, really, like, be realistic, right? If it's, you're maybe you're not going to run the marathon, but you could do a 5K. and you could build up and train for that and then see what happens from there. But just do what you can and do the best you can every day. And if you're not setting world records, that's okay. That's
That's okay too.
okay.
Yeah, no, man. It's just, I just think it's so important, for those listening. It's like, I wanted Tommy to come on because he's obviously an inspiration. Two, he's a dude that just takes family and life and community and his faith very seriously. And I respect that. And I think a lot of us do in various forms. But with that said, it's like there's no gold standard here. It's just you got to figure out the way that works best for you. And it sounds like the only kind of fundamental principle therein is you just got to wake up and do the shit every single day,
Mm-hmm.
despite the discomfort. And there's going to be plenty of setbacks or perhaps 5 near-death experiences along the way.
Hope not.
And, and listen, what better opportunity to come and reinforce fundamentals.
For sure.
And that's what I want for you. That's what I'm here to support you with. And that's what I'll continue to challenge and encourage and support you with as well along the way. So Tommy, appreciate you, brother.
Of course, man. Of course.
Those of you listening, appreciate you continuing to show up and learn and grow. And if there's anything I can do to keep challenging and supporting you, that's what I'm here for. Thanks again. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, man. See you guys.